So I just saw Dune 2. Let's talk about it. Dune 2 is the sequel to Dune, made by Denis Villeneuve. I hope I pronounced that right. It's not Dennis, it's Denis. So I went into this with very high expectations. I very much enjoyed the first Dune. I thought the first Dune established a lot of stuff very well, but it did feel like it was leading into something. And this is the something. Dune 2 takes place right after the end of Dune 1. So you do have to watch Dune 1 before you watch Dune 2. You can't just go into Dune 2 all blind. It's not really going to happen. Unless you read the books, you probably could do that if you're a fan of the books. But if you're like me, who's never read the books and just watched the movie, then you're definitely not going to want to go in blind. This movie, we follow Paul Atreides as he goes through the trials of being a Fremen. And we see him slowly become a part of their culture, a part of their society, and become what he's always been destined to become. So let's talk about the things I really enjoyed about this film. Right off the bat, the film is gorgeous. While it does have a very limited palette, I mean, you're mostly in the desert, in the dunes, so it's a lot of oranges and yellows and bright whites. Somehow it works. It doesn't feel one note at all. I feel like they did a really good job with the lighting in this film. And of course, we can't talk about Dune without talking about the cinematography. Come on, it's Dune. Some of these shots are so gorgeous, especially the ones that take place on the planet where the Harkonnens are from. I think that's how you pronounce it, Harkonnen. That planet's all in grayscale, but not in like the cheesy Instagram filter kind of way, but it makes the whites very white and the blacks very black, so you just get this extreme contrast of color, or lack thereof. There is no color in that world. All the scenes there looked insane. Such a great experience in theaters. Another thing I really enjoyed are the characters. Obviously, Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, he was pretty solid. The boy Timmy Tim, even though he's this scrawny little guy, he pulls off the leadership role very well. And the chemistry between him and Zendaya, it works. Zendaya plays Shani, which the whole time I thought they were saying Johnny. Like, okay. Johnny, I guess. Shani and Paul Atreides have like, a little love going on. And so you get to see that love story unfold. And I think they do a really nice job with this love story in particular. Florence Pugh's introduced. She has a very minor role, but her role is still important nonetheless. I like the way she plays it. She plays it very straight, where a lot of the characters in this film will sound like they're from 2024, like, our generation. So there's something really off about Florence Pugh's line delivery, but I kind of enjoy it because it comes off futuristic, like not modern America. I kind of dig that. Same thing goes for Austin Butler. Austin Butler really shined here. He didn't sound like Elvis. I was expecting him to come in sounding like Elvis like he does in every interview, but instead he ended up sounding more like his uncle, which is played by Stellan Skarsgård. Just the raspiness and stuff. A little bit of rasp. His character is a psychopath, and he plays it off well. You kind of don't hate him as much as you expect you would, given that he is a Harkonnen. I know he's not a great guy, but I just feel like Austin Butler gave him so much life and energy. Lady Jessica was played very well. She's a little bit weirder in this movie, but has a lot more of a role. I think she did a phenomenal job. But surprisingly, one of my favorite parts about this film was Javier Bardem playing Stilgar. Stilgar is the #1 fanboy of Paul Atreides, and he ends up being sort of the comic relief this entire film. And yes, while this film is a lot funnier than previous films, it's not in a way where it feels off. It doesn't feel like they're using humor that's going to be dated. It's just the scenarios are funny. They're not saying jokes. He'll just be saying stuff that is just funny in the context.
What? This is a moment in history! Take a picture!
So he ends up being this comic relief character, but you really love him. You love his presence. You love every single time he's around. I really like what he brought to this character. And it's so funny because I think Javier Bardem had a lot of hit or miss roles. I'm looking at like Little Mermaid, where he's not that good. This, I really loved him and I want more of him. What was a little bit disappointing was how sidelined Dave Bautista's character was. I thought he would have a little bit more of a role, a little bit more of an impact on the overall story, but he ends up kind of just like not really doing anything. Same thing goes for Stellan Skarsgård's character. I know in the first film he was a little bit bigger, but he's like hardly in this film. And I find his character so fascinating and so creepy and so vile. Also, the score is pretty good. There's just parts of it that have like this Like, I don't know, just there's just this energy when you're worm riding or you're just in the desert. I was in the theater like, oh yeah, the music's jiving. I'm here for it. And while personally I find the film to be very well paced in the first 2 acts, I felt like the third act felt a little bit rushed, for me at least. I know this movie is already 3 hours, but it's like they needed an additional 30 more minutes, because by the third act, everything kind of just happens back to back to back to back to back. I won't spoil what happens right now. I'll do it later when I talk about a little bit of spoilers, but just know that I felt like the third act was a little bit rushed. Like the ending felt like it got there a little too fast. For me, at least. A lot of my friends walked out like, oh, that was awesome. And I was like, I agree, it was great, but it felt a little bit unearned and a little too fast paced just in the third act. The first 2 acts are really good pacing, really good world building, and really good character growth and development. Also, I think that Christopher Walken was a miss. I don't feel like he played the Emperor that well. He wasn't menacing. He barely did anything. Probably the only bad casting choice. Sorry, Christopher Walken. But I really do want to talk about like my main issue. Just a mini spoiler talk. Just a mini spoiler talk. If you want to skip the spoilers, time code is right here, okay? 3, 2, 1, talking about some spoilers. So basically in the third act, there's like a full-on planning where they get like nukes and they're able to attack the Emperor and then kind of just win. That's the part that I felt like was a little too fast. I wish there was just like 10, 15, 20 more minutes of just more of the back and forth between the war, because otherwise it just felt like they just steamrolled with absolutely no opposition. I wish there was more of a planning phase and a little bit more of this build up in the battle. I guess I'm kind of wishing it was more like Helm's Deep in the second Lord of the Rings, but I can't have that, and maybe that's okay. And I think a lot of people watching it may not find that issue that I have, but that was just me. I just felt like it was rushed. And they did my boy Dave Bautista dirty. I thought there would be this amazing showdown between Gurney, who's played by Josh Brolin. Yes, he's back. And Dave Bautista's character, but that lasts less than 10 seconds, so he just goes down like a punk. Also, the marketing is so funny. Anya Taylor-Joy is all over the marketing about this film. She's in it for literally 5 seconds of screen time. I just thought that was funny. Okay, done with spoiler talks. But overall, Dune 2 was amazing. I walked away blown away. I'm super duper excited for the third and potentially final Dune installment. From my understanding, the original Dune book was split into 3 books, so it's like they're following the 3 books. And I've heard that it's not completely accurate to the book, but I'm okay with that. I don't need everything to be accurate to books. I'm not one of those guys. But I also haven't read the book, so I have no attachment. So I guess I really shouldn't have a say there. But Dune 2 was shot beautifully, acted beautifully. It takes its source material seriously. Everything that happens is taken seriously. Timothy Chalamet, I initially thought wasn't going to be a great lead, but now I'm rooting for him. I like him as a lead, and I'm really excited for the future that is to come with Dune. So I'll be giving Dune Part 2 a 9 out of 10. But what do you think? Have you seen Dune Part 2? And if so, let me know who your favorite character is, or if you prefer the first or the second one. I want to kind of get a vibe on which of the 2 films is better, according to my fans. I am so sorry that it's taking me almost a year to upload on this channel. Just know that I was not in a good place mentally, but now I'm really, really excited to just start pumping out more content on this channel. So if you guys are still subscribed, thank you so much for coming back. If you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing. I'm going to be reviewing movies and discussing film on this channel, which is honestly something I want to do more and more, and not just be stuck playing video games all the time, okay? I'm not just the video game guy, you noob. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.